thought it had been 24, 25, or 20.
Yeah, I think I got that. Hannafin Road
Are we putting all this out?
culvert. I don't remember the details.
It's not up right now.
I can, if you need me to, I can email you what I know about it, but.
It's just, I just go over that road a lot, and I know it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I just was wondering why, I don't see anything on here even, doing any kind of fill.
And this
Is that in the,
people feel like
Hannafin is year 3 of the bond, and Hannafin Culvert is part of the.
Hannafin's the road that was just shut down, right? What's the road off of 44 that was,
Oh, that's parallel, that's one street up, that's not Millbrook,
What street?
I thought it was Hannafin that was,
Hannafin's
it's Millbrook then?
Yeah, it's
Millbrook,
before-
Millbrook is, I think that's Colebrook.
Yeah, well, we have a short section, it's not Millbrook, it's the one between Millbrook and Hannafin, I don't know why I can't
Yeah.
remember the name of it.
Right.
No, oops, I don't remember, but, yeah, so both the projects are in there, one's a bond and one's capital.
So nothing, you
So I
don't
wanted
expect,
I wanted to do the culvert before I did the road, so.
even just smoothing it out.
Oh, we have, every year we do, but it needs a complete reconstruction. Anything you put down
Yeah.
just falls apart.
Yeah.
Every time you plow it, even driving on it, just pulls the patches up. Next on the next rounds is the White Street Bridge. And again, as soon as we knew that there was a high likelihood of the federal local bridge program funding 100% of that. So the federal local bridge program funds bridges that are more than 20 feet, or more than 6 feet, more than 20 feet in span.
This is the bridge that's half closed.
Yes, yep. So as soon as we realized that the federal local bridge program was funding 100%, we put in 2 applications immediately. The White Street Bridge, which is the one that's partially closed, and the Grantville Road Bridge, which is one that you would almost not even know it's there, but it's structurally deficient, and both of them were accepted, and we've gotten confirmation that they're eligible for the 100% reimbursement. So sometimes we put our efforts into projects like this where we can get 100% payment. It does postpone some of the stuff that we plan on spending out of our own pocket, but again, that's a decision we make just because the project need to be done if we can get it paid
Or
for.
can the project be delayed? Because I think roads should be a priority over bridges.
Until you have to pay for them at millions each.
No, but I mean, if you don't get, spend all your time doing engineering on bridges, when are you gonna get engineering done on roads?
It's bandwidth. You're right. I could stop bridges, but, at 100% payment, I don't really want to.
And the bridges overall on a per unit basis are much more expensive.
Oh,
And we're talking millions instead of hundreds of thousands.
yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that I had suggested over a year and a half ago when we did these bonds is to hiring a part-time project manager.
Right.
And,
You're not wrong about that, and that's my failure.
Well,
It is. I
We could still do
I
it.
can't deny it I can't say it any other way.
well, because the bond has money in it, we could
Yep.
use it for a part-time project manager, somebody that maybe is retired with a lot of this experience, and they could be managing these roads and managing the bridge and managing, other projects at the same time, and because, I know you know this, everybody works really hard, right? There's no doubt that everybody's working really hard. But the public is really impatient at this point. And,
I
and
know.
you see it all the time. So if we can hire a person to manage these projects while you're doing the step screen or whatever it is at the sewer plant or the water plant and what's happening up there, and the guys are so busy on the roads, I think the bond allows.
I can stop you right now. I know you're 100% correct, and Josh has even he's even given me a draft for the position, and it's completely me. I haven't done it. So you're not wrong. I just can't I just can't. I'm just that.
So can the board hire him? I mean, can we help you hire them? Because who can help you hire the?
Jim and I will sit down by the end of the week and we'll take a next step. How about that?
We'll try, I know, and again, I take full responsibility for not getting it done, but not getting it done doesn't help me get other things done. I get it, and I hear your plea, and I will endeavor to.
Because people can help. I mean,
I would think the COG could help, or, you know, all these other agencies we pay thousands of dollars to could give us a draft of a job description.
Oh, yeah, and we have a draft of a job description. The next step we need to take is making sure, I mean, first we have to figure out how many hours it's going to be in, if that has to go through civil service, which I guess we'll talk about in a little bit. But beyond that, it's really scope of work. It's trying to figure out where Jim's line's going to begin and end, where Bart's line's going to begin and end, and where this person's able to come in and make the greatest impact. And I know that's one of the challenges that you're facing. When you've got your fingers in so many things right now.
Yeah, and again, I take full responsibility for not getting it done, and we will.
I mean, one of the defining points could just be what's in the bond.
I know.
I mean, the person comes in and makes sure that the things that were planned for the bond are getting completed. And then you go do your 100%
I
bridges.
know, it does sound easy. It really, truly does.
Well, I know, that's why I started with everybody works really hard.
I know.
You know, you're working really hard, but.
And I appreciate that acknowledgement, and so does my crew. And,
I mean,
and
I
I just
know
take
they are.
full
I watch you all
responsibility.
work.
So, next is the Oakdale Avenue. I guess I can kind of say the same thing for all the rest of these, and it kind of dovetails into where Candy's going here with, get that person on board. Because really the only updates I made to, the Oakdale Avenue, the South Road, the Upland Road, the Moore Avenue, the Wani Road, the Hubbard Street, and the Spring Street projects is I took comments that said we will begin, and we expect to begin, to we may begin and we hope to begin. And that's strictly bandwidth. So that just, brings your point home, So, again, I plead guilty. And then I didn't really go too much further, but some of the projects we just give kind of preliminary planning projects is really just kind of casually on our radar. We keep moving them closer towards the front and working towards just doing some of the preliminary work. And that's West Wakefield Boulevard, Newfield Road, Lake Street project. And, some of those are scheduled for 2026, 2027. But if you don't start doing some of your legwork now, they just drag on. So, So that's, in a nutshell, that's a brief summary of the highlights. There's a bazillion other little things and day-to-day operations, but that's where we stand at this point.
Yeah, I just think it's critical that we make sure that we get as much information out to the taxpayers who voted on and approved that $18 million of this budget, and see this stuff being done, because I hear too, I don't see anything getting done. I don't see it, I don't hear it, and I know a lot of it is, I tell them, there's a lot of engineering work being done behind the scenes and other projects. But I think it's important that we make sure that the public knows that the bonding package that we approved is being worked on. The roads are in this kind of an order of getting done, so that they can look at their own road and say, okay, I voted on this 2 years ago, what's happening? So we need to get a lot of this out to people, because we worked, and you guys worked very hard at presenting a package of what we were gonna do. We got the approval, difficult, but we got the approval, and it wasn't overwhelming, it was good approval. And we need to make sure that we're entirely on top of this, and we see publicly everything that's being done, as much as being done, and when it will be done. And a lot of that has to be done on the website. Make sure that people know.
Other questions? just, I see the possibility here of taking money from the Case Avenue Bridge, some excess money, and putting it toward paving on Marshall Street. Is that a recommendation, or is that something we need to do, have anything to do with, or is that Jim's decision?
At this time, unless the Board of Selectmen wants to withdraw permissions for any of these projects, the bonding funds have all been authorized for the roads that are listed, herein. So there should be no other, legally, there's no other permission that you need to grant in order for money, even if it's of a different amount, to go towards each individual project. The project totals with the bonding have all been approved, and however that shakes out, once we get to the end, if Jim said, hey, I need more money in order to finish these 3 projects, or whatever the case might be, that would of course require your approval. And of course, we're going to keep you apprised of the situation long before we're running, close to running out of money. But at this time, if there's an extra 50,000 here, we need 100,000 there, and so forth. Right now, under the bond that's been issued, there's no legal requirement for any other motion.
Bridges have nothing to do with them, obviously, since those are 100% paid for.
Right.
But, no, and you don't even know what the leftover's gonna be, because it's basically an estimate. Now that the federal government's picking up that extra money, but we don't know what the actual cost is yet.
Well, but if there's money there and we know the money's there, it would be nice to be able to check some of these things off
Well, yeah,
and complete the projects.
right, absolutely.
Anything else?
Jim, I think you mentioned someplace in here about going out. Let's take the crazy thing about the Highland Lake drainage. The bandwidth of the engineering firm couldn't keep up with this. What, we hire the wrong engineering firm, a firm that can't do what we ask him to do?
Good luck getting engineers. I mean, it's like pulling teeth. There's so much money out there that engineers are working, round the clock, and they can't keep up with the work. So it's not, every engineer I'm working with, we're having the same thing. And the other thing that increases the amount of work for us is every engineer is giving junior engineers far higher responsibilities, and that requires a lot more checking, observing, so it's systemic. It's not any one engineer. Try getting a surveyor. Half the time the engineering just grinds to a halt because you don't have a survey. So you can't just blame any engineering firm. It's systemically there's just not the capacity. That's one of the reasons the supply chain, crashed and burned. There wasn't enough capacity in the system for, iron pipe. So doubled in price. Even plastic pipe, some of it quadrupled in price. Like, it's crazy. Engineering, you can't rush it because then you get a bad product. So
It's all the federal funds that were given out to everyone.
I
At
guess
the
we
same
can't be
time.
like I-90, huh? Or
Yeah.
I-95, replace the bridge in Philadelphia that quickly, huh?
well, you could be if you made the rules and you could spend whatever it took to do it however you wanted with no big contracts. Like, that's the difference.
Yeah, it was all federal project.
Yeah, but it's really hard to spend money because
It's really hard to spend money?
it's wicked hard because everybody tells, this is a great story. I had someone the other day I ran into, they asked me, oh, are you still in charge of Public Works? I said, well, I'm the responsible party. I said, but I can't really say I'm in charge. I'm like, well, tell me more. I said, every single project you do has a million masters to it. The people that, give you the money, and whether it's the Board of Selectmen that have to do, appease the people that elected them, or the people that give you the grant money. You've got to, these projects I'm submitting back to the COG for their review. It's gotta go to DEP for their review. It's gotta go to Army Corps for its review. It's gotta go to DOT for its review. It's gotta go to DEP for its review. And the grant people say, well, you gotta make sure that your bid documents meet our bid requirements. So it's hard. It's really hard. So that's what makes the project hard. You know, the actual engineering of it is one thing, but it's the, you know, free money's not free. It's really hard to do things according to the rules.
And time consuming.
And wicked time consuming and expensive. You know, the engineering, if they could just say, hey, this is what I did on this last bridge, let's do it here. But everyone has to go and be independently observed by, you know, whoever's giving you the 80% or the 50% or, you know, whoever, you know, whatever it is. And can you blame them? If it's your money, why do you think I'm here? Because you want to make sure that we're spending your money on the projects you want in the way that you want. It's the same thing all the way up the food chain. So it just gets, each time you go one level deeper, you know, the complexity, you know, dealing with you or the Water Commission, which is about the same, is half as burdensome as the state, which is half as burdensome as the federal government. And thus, it's half the price to do stuff for you than it is for the state, and half the price to do it for the state than it is the feds. You know, it's really hard work. And if we didn't have Bart, none of this would be going. He's a master, but he's got bandwidth limits as well. So, yeah, it's hard.
And these contract firms that, for like the crack ceiling, are you finding they're difficult to find too, and are increasing in their prices because of that?
Regular road maintenance.
Yeah, across the board, I can't say yes or no. There's some that seem like it's gotten higher priced. Paving, because the asphalt is really, really high. Crack seal, chip seal, that hasn't been too bad.
So more on the engineering side,
No,
the
but
difficulty.
it's hit or miss. Ductile iron pipe for water lines, insane. If you can get it, you know, the steel for the water tanks is on a 6-month wait. Engineering, surveying is probably the biggest. You know, ask the land use committees about how many projects are waiting for surveyors. It's just, there's just not enough capacity for all the work that's being done. You know, we're not the only town that's got a lot of projects going on. So you just have to, you know, whatever project the engineers send you, hey, this is our latest update. We work on that as soon as we can get to it. We send it back, and then they get on it as soon as they can get to it. And then in the meantime, somebody else is sending something, and a project that we may be full focused on may get leapfrogged by one that was on a back burner because they might have finished up a big job. Like, you just don't know. It's complete and utter chaos out there. It's really hard.
And when you contract with somebody like that, there's no way you could put time limits on it and penalties for not making those times.
I don't think you want to
That
get.
hasn't
We
held
used to
up.
be able to do that.
That hasn't held up our jobs. The Greenway and Whiting Street, those aren't the reasons that we held up our own jobs. That has nothing to do with.
Yeah, I mean, if you put those stipulations in your bid documents, they may just
Price
go.
goes up.
Well, they'll probably go up, because they'll be hedging against things, but they also might not bid it, because they'll go to ones that don't have those stipulations, because there's work everywhere. So you're not exactly in the driver's. Yeah, it's a very complex, it's really hard.
Well, I think it's good you're saying these things and we're hearing them publicly because, you know, people think it's really easy. And why isn't my road getting fixed is always the question, and you're giving us answers and when and why not.
Yeah, it's challenging, it's hard, it's really hard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Moving on to item D, 23-52, consider and possibly act approving a letter in support of the town grant application for the federal Safe Streets for All program.
So speaking of the federal DOT, they've launched a grant program. This is actually its second year that it's run. and it's called Safe Streets for All. So municipalities around the country can apply. There are two different types of grants that they offer. The first is a planning and demonstration grant. And the purpose is to develop, complete, or supplement a comprehensive safety action plan. And the action plan, it's trying to be holistic. It's supposed to be a look at the whole town, not any one road, not just Main Street, but really trying to look at every aspect of a town to figure out what needs to be fixed in order to make safe streets for all. The second set of grants that are offered through this program are called implementation grants, and that's the kind of money that we want. That's the kind of money that's going to actually fix a road, replace a road, and focus on roadways. We as a municipality are not eligible to apply for an implementation grant until we have one of these action plans completed. And the action plan has to adhere to all the federal guidelines. As Jim just described, there's the whole bureaucracy of it's twice as complicated as the state and so forth. So what we're proposing, and these things take time, but the Safe Streets for All is funded for a minimum of 5 years through the various acts that have already been approved. And we're in year 2. So if we, by year 3, can get an action plan pulled together, or at least by year 4, that gives us at least a minimum of 2 years where we can be applying for some of these other road projects. So we've been taking a look at what other communities in our area and in the state have been doing. Torrington last year in round 1 received a $200,000 allocation, and there's a 20% match that's required for this program, to be upfront about it. So that's $250,000 that they believe can go forward and complete an action plan. So they, just like us, are trying to complete that action plan, look at all their streets in town, create a list of what's needed in order to make the streets safer, and then go for those implementation grants. So it's my hope that, and we have a pretty short amount of time here to wrap up this grant application, but it's my hope that we can apply for $200,000 just like they did, and that's an estimate right now, but I would like to move forward with one of these action plans so that we may be eligible for those implementation grants down the road. I think that having a more comprehensive and up-to-date action plan in general is a positive thing for our town, and it will start to check off the boxes that we have been looking for in and around Main Street. We know that the state DOT, before they're going to allow us to make significant changes on Main Street, like nose and parking or a road diet, anything else, is going to require more study. They've told us that up front. They will not allow us to go forward unless we have an action, a plan in place, probably engineered drawings and a study much like this. So if this can take the place of a little bit of that study, we're really killing 2 birds with 1 stone. We're opening a door for future implementation, and we're also trying to move forward with our Main Street rehabilitation and reimagining. So for those reasons, I recommend that the Board of Selectmen authorize a letter of support to be authored and signed by the mayor on behalf of the board.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John.
I would like to discuss just a question on this, though, if I may. In Torrington, and I've just noticed that a couple of their side streets, which are not main streets, they've been able to build in bikeways and share the roads signs, so that you get a share the road sign that goes along with the road with bicyclists. Is this part of it? Can we put some of these things in there? Because I don't know how Torrington was able to do that, but many of their side roads now have those kinds of things. We have nothing like that.
So again, this isn't implementation, but within the plan, a huge portion of this plan, they're not just looking at what's going to make this safe for other drivers. The goal is to look at it as a comprehensive community that you're living in. We're looking at pedestrians, we're looking at bicyclists, we're looking at motorists, individuals in cars and motorcycles and all of that. So yes, these plans are trying to consider, do we need to have more signage around sharing the road? Do you need a dedicated bike lane? All of these things. I don't know what the ultimate action plan is going to look like. This is a fairly new program, and I don't know all the ins and outs of it yet, but I do know that sharing the road is a significant piece of having the streets be safe from the federal government's perspective.
Just want that to be part of it.
I have a question.
Important.
Candy?
Yeah, I have a question on the match. And because the fire station that congressionally approved funding goes through, we need a match. The DPW garage, we need a match. The sewers are a match for bigger money. And now more money for a plan. I mean, where's this coming? How are we gonna get it? Where's
So to go through each of those, actually, the fire station and the public works garage, I think I've been pretty upfront about the fact it's a 5 years performance period from the time that it's awarded. So that means from this spring going forward, we have a ticking clock on the public works garage. It's going to require bonding. Unless we can find some state grant, you're probably talking about another bond, and it's a little bit down the road. You know, it's not tomorrow, it's not this year, it's not next year, it's a little bit down there. The fire station, if we choose, and we haven't accepted that grant formally, just so you know, the congressional earmark. And we actually haven't even spent a dime on it. That was just authorized with this capital improvement plan. I think it's $100,000 towards some of the preliminary drawings and engineering for that facility. The fire station's the same exact program, so you're gonna find the exact same cause and effect.
Yeah, I know
But when
that.
you talk about the needs in town, you've got a 55% off coupon for the completion of 2 buildings.
Yeah, we had a
or-
budget where we were cutting $50,000 from it
Understood.
to
but-
try to pass it. So, I mean, I'm gonna talk a little bit later about economic development, because I asked you the other day about having the director come
Yep.
to one of our next meetings so that we could talk a little bit about what's happening with that. But, I know that we want to do these things, and we had Safe Streets do the intersection plan up on Bridge Street before, and we had a plan, and we have a plan, we still have the plan, and it's still there. The street's still in the same configuration it was, and that plan came when we had a planner way back when that was here, who started the GIS mapping, but we never finished it because he left, right? So if we have this plan, and to be able to access other money, I'm really concerned about these matches that we have, because depending on where things go and where the rest of the outside economic drivers happen, we have all these matches, and we're not well defined in where and how we can fund them.
Well, and so those are those 2 projects. We've already identified where we could fund the match for the sewer projects, so that's taken care of. And then the fourth and final item that requires a match right now is this $50,000. Jim and I had a lot of conversations, not all of them very long, but we had a lot of conversations about $50,000 that's currently in this current year, our new fiscal year's capital improvement plan. It's $50,000 to help start building up a match fund. And I know I went over it at some point during a presentation. We had a lot of conversation about, hey, we have a lot of matches coming up. Should there be more money in that account? When we started looking at cuts, I went to Jim again and again, and I said, are you sure we shouldn't cut that down to 0? Are you sure? And he continuously was in support of keeping $50,000 in the budget, because we know that there are projects that require a match. And not only should we have $50,000 in it, but if you look down the road in the capital improvement plan, of course it's not set in stone, but the plan is to keep stepping that up, knowing that it's just going to keep coming. This seems to be the new way of financing.
It always was the way of financing. The only
Some
time
projects.
it wasn't is the ARPA funds. There always was a match, except for it was a steep grant. It was 500.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I
the
think
capital
more grants are coming out.
Capital funding is finite.
The capital funding-
is finite,
Okay.
because a lot of it came out of fund balance for this year. So our capital funding, we've been funding out of fund balance, or funding it out of money that was left over each year.
Right, except unless we have projects that are being taken care of, so they're able to come off our capital
So who's gonna
improvement
do
plan, and
this
we're
action
able to
plan?
step things up.
When we talk about bandwidth,
Right.
You have to hire a firm on to complete the action plan for us.
How much is that?
That's how it.
So that's on.
Well, but that's part of the $250,000. I mean, that's
Oh,
the money that we're asking for, is for
Okay.
somebody to come in, hire them to complete the plan.
well, I think I could spend $250, if you gave me $250,000, I'd make your streets safer for you. I need to write a plan.
But we already applied like 450 for Main Street, right? And another grant somewhere.
So,
we
no,
design Main
so
Street.
we don't have a grant that's active right now for any Main Street project. No, we don't. There was nothing that was eligible under, we at one point had put in for Communities Challenge to focus on some of that, but that was denied in, I think it was round 2. The congressionally directed spending grants, none of it is applicable
So
to
none of the grants that we
Main
applied for
Street.
came through for it?
As of right now, I think we only put one in and it didn't come through.
Yeah, because I know when
So
we were
we're in
talking,
purgatory on Main Street.
yeah, well, we knew that they said, oh, yeah, we can help you, and then they said, but you have to give us a plan. And
Right.
so we did do a grant, and that was denied at that time. So
That's
now
right.
we have nothing, got it.
So,
So Josh, if I can throw out one little tidbit.
sure.
That might help. I understand, you know, you have a plan, where's the action? Well, the Safe Streets, you can't get action money, you can't get project money if you don't have the plan that goes by their standards. So this kind of goes along the conversation I was having before about who's really running things. It's the people with the money, you know, whether it's the taxpayers or the grant people, they're the ones that make the rules with the money. And if, you know, if we want to implement some of these projects, and, you know, we met with Commissioner Boughton, and the program that he was, everything went back to Safe Streets, everything. Every time we brought something up, he goes, yeah, that's a Safe Streets, that would go through Safe Streets, that would go through Safe Streets. And if you don't have your assessment, your plan through their, you know, the way they want it, in the format that they're used to looking at, you won't get any of that implementation money.
And the implementation grants, are they matches also?
I believe that there is also a 20% match with those, but they're for roads. And one of the
Right.
things that I wanted to bring up is, if we're trying to stop focusing on, you know, we've already got some sewer projects that are moving forward. Hopefully that's covered by congressionally directed spending. We've got our bridges that are moving forward. We need roads. This is it. There's no other federal program that I am aware of at the present time that's focused on roads. We do have a connectivity grant that's coming forward that has the capacity to focus on some roads, but there are such strict stipulations on what that's supposed to be used for that we don't believe any of the roads we're currently working on are going to qualify. So we're looking at totally different projects for that state grant. This is the one that's focused on roads right now. And trust me, Jim and I, as well as Tom and the rest of our grants team, we have a lot of other grants that we've been trying to focus on. You all know that there's been a huge focus on bringing in this outside money to the town. This is not one that I'm most excited about. I don't really want to have to worry about another plan, but we're bringing it forward to you right now because we believe that getting access to this implementation grant is going to pay dividends down the road.
So what's the scope of the plan, though? Is it every one of our roads?
That's my understanding.
Okay, so it's gonna follow up on, well, that has nothing to do with that survey. That was the condition of the roads, right? So this isn't,
Indirectly, it might.
So I was just gonna do 81 miles of road.
I don't believe that there's going to be a recommendation for every inch of those 81 miles, but I believe the evaluation's done on the whole town, and this plan is about what needs to be improved on those 84 miles of road.
but they might prioritize it.
Yeah, I would hope so.
So our 2016
For
road
safety.
plan, will that be something like that, or is it different?
I'm not really
That's a
sure.
road condition plan. This is a
Action plan.
road
give us days.
safety plan, you know.
Like the curve at the lake that, on the east side of the lake that was gonna be done one year, but we couldn't find the 10% match for the 90% match?
That might be one that rises to their top. I suspect that so I know that the first thing they look at is safety related, meaning fatalities. And then,
How about light pole?
I don't know about that.
Fatality of
So the
light poles.
intersection of Dairy Queen,
You know, again, their primary focus has always been fatalities and really bad accidents, high frequency accidents. And the last time we went through this process with them, I checked with the police department, we hadn't had a fatality on a town road in many years, thank goodness.
Still.
But this also covers the state roads, and Main Street is a state road. So I think it's gonna look at things, but it's really, I think it's gonna have to, just by default, it's gonna have to hone in on the areas that we're most concerned with, and that's the Main Street corridor and,
North
you
Main
know,
Street.
one of the things, it was a classic thing, we got an email just the other, I don't know if you saw my reply to that. We got an email from a resident who walks down South Main Street towards, like towards Ledgebrook.
Right.
And he says, hey, what is going on? These crosswalks are awful. They're just awful in every sense. And he's like, this is bad. Those are the kinds of things that they look at,
So when
Sometimes
DOT
it's as
said
simple-
we couldn't put a sidewalk down, they say you have to have a sidewalk.
Again, I don't know the intricacies
Right.
of how it's gonna work out, but those are the types of things, they may look at that, and one of the reasons in our grant, we pushed from Ledgebrook all the way to, where was the end, 183, to going to Colebrook, is because we wanted somebody that has authority in the financing world to say, hey, a sidewalk down to Ledgebrook is something that, has value for safety reasons and therefore funding reasons. So, we don't know. We can't answer your question, what was it gonna be? If we knew that, we'd probably still have to do it if we wanna get implementation funds, but, I suspect it's gonna be, those types of things. It's gonna help us, I truly believe it's gonna help us a lot with whatever our plans are gonna be for the Main Street corridor. And, the parking and the speeding and, rah, rah, rah. So, this is what I suspect based on the conversations I've had with the people that were talking about it and what I've read, but I can't say for certain that's it.
So when do they start this if we approve it?
So we're not going to hear back for a number of months on
Oh,
whether.
this is just a letter.
Yeah, this is just the letter of support
Right,
for
right,
the
right,
application.
right.
So this is not an acceptance of the grant. At the end of the day, if we decide, hey, you know what, it's now February, we have to decide, are we in or are we out? We got the grant award, and we say, you know what, we've got too many pressure points, we need to put our money somewhere else. It's okay. At that point, collectively, we as a group can have that conversation and say, we're not putting more money towards it, thank you, but no thank you. But this letter of support at least keeps us in the game. It's going to be another year before we have the opportunity to get in the queue for a planning demonstration grant.
Any other discussion?
Keep us in the game. Let's go.
Seeing no other discussion, do we need to read the motion again, or are we good?
I'm happy to read it quick. The recommended motion was I move that the Board of
I
Selectmen.
think I made that.
Yeah, we
Oh,
already
you made the
it.
motion, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I think we're at a vote now.
yeah, I just needed, if we needed to read
You
through
want
the
you want me
motion.
to read the whole motion again?
No,
We're good.
We got it.
no, he's,
It's on- yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Item E, consider and possibly act on the proposed amendments to Ordinance 12, Civil Service Commission.
So, there's been a lot of conversation about civil service, from my perspective, since I started. I know that my predecessor had a particular view of the effectiveness of the commission. I know that other individuals in the community have similar feelings, and I know that others are very much opposed to those feelings. What I'm proposing to the Board of Selectmen tonight is the repealing, really, of the ordinance number 12, this is section 12 in our newly codified set of ordinances, which is all about the Civil Service Board, as it's called. We refer to it more commonly as the Civil Service Commission. So my understanding is since 1991, the town of Winchester has had a Civil Service Commission. Civil service follows state statutes to oversee town, and its own rules that it's established to oversee town hiring practices. So that involves everything from requiring a very specific application to be completed, a series of examinations to be applied to applicants, with a series of questions to be created by the Civil Service Commission staff to populate those examinations, which more often ends up being town hall staff creating those questions, and rigid requirements around who may be considered for appointment to any given applicant. So the Civil Service Commission rules are on file in Town Manager's office if anybody wants to take a look at what I'm referring to. But over the course of many years, I certainly, over the last several years, have been documenting inefficiencies in town processes and procedures caused by the Civil Service Commission. So here are a few examples. Currently, the commission's examinations are overseen by a paid chief examiner, which adds significant costs to the operation of the commission, upwards of $10,000 per year. Right now, we have 2 individuals in town hall, one of them being me, who are paid as full-time staff who have significant human resources experience, who are hired to more or less oversee these practices. And now there's another layer of bureaucracy that's added into these various interviewing practices and procedures that adds more cost to our taxpayers. And this is on an annual basis. Some years it's a little bit more, some years it's less. It depends on how many individuals we're hiring for, but the costs are clear. The Civil Service Commission also requires written and oral examinations of applicants. Those examinations themselves can take weeks, even months to write, to create the questions for, never mind set up, administer, and finally score. This creates extensive application processes and wait times for applicants, which has led to many of our would-be hires to be scooped up by other employers in the meantime, or be scared off by the multiple examinations and either withdraw or fail to apply in the first place entirely. I know that we have one, and this I should say is compounded by the approval of job descriptions. Our Civil Service Commission is required by their own rules to review and approve all of the job descriptions that the town creates. I'm aware of one job description that they actually initiated a review on and conducted all of the different edits and changes to that began. It was in February 2022 that they began this process. The job description wasn't finalized until February 2023. It took 13 meetings of that commission to go through, make edits, and apply changes to a single job description. We have other jobs, some more recent that have been including the hiring of our town planner, I know off the top of my head. It took still 3 meetings, which is over the course of 2 full months, where I had submitted a job description for their approval, and I was not able to proceed with a hiring practice. Something that began in April wasn't able to be hired until October, was when the individual finally joined us. Beyond that, the Civil Service Commission's rules around nepotism and favoritism are actually more relaxed than those found in the town's new employee handbook and policies. It leaves the town more susceptible to issues so long as the commission continues to operate. For example, I know this was back in the 90s, admittedly, but this, I think, outlines some of the long-standing history that we have with the commission and the fact that there have been inefficiencies. One of the first individuals hired through the commission was related to a sitting member of the commission at the time. There are no actual anti-nepotism and anti-favoritism policies within the civil service rules for individual members of the commission and the applicants that they're reviewing. While it is removing my office from having more direct interactions with the applicants in the initial stages of the application process, it's putting members of the commission in direct communication with applicants, which opens up a whole new door for different levels of nepotism and favoritism to occur. Until 2022, the Civil Service Commission also prohibited the town from collecting applications via email and placing job ads on modern, highly trafficked websites like Indeed. Still, the commission has issues with the method in which we're collecting applications right now. There have been numerous instances where there have been issues with that collection system. Different applications have been lost, have been mismanaged by the commission, haven't made it to my office when it's very clear that they have the qualifications to hold a job in question. Other situations where we've been waiting for weeks just for somebody to check an email account and to have all of those applications forwarded along to us. And to that point, one of the points that I had written down here tonight is that not all of the applications are forwarded to my office for consideration. It's only those that on a relatively subjective basis meet the commission's minimum qualification threshold that are forwarded for any level of consideration, meaning that the town actually is not reviewing each application that comes through. Again, these different processes of screening add more time onto how long it takes to turn around a job application and have some level of answer come back to various applicants. The commission meets once a month at the present time. At different moments when I've asked for a meeting in a shorter amount of time, it's not been met with any great level of approval, and we have not had an instance where the commission has met sooner in order to work alongside town management and to try and move some of these processes forward, which again adds weeks, if not months, onto this process. We have the commission has not allowed for alterations to be made to their application form, despite the fact that the application form requires applicants to enter duplicate information and was originally created in the 90s. From a modern personnel management standpoint, it's not positive from my perspective. The commission's also created an arbitrary cutoff of 19 hours per week as marking the difference between a part-time employee and a full-time employee. Employees working under that threshold, under 19 hours per week, are not subjected to civil service rules, making the hiring practice, and without the adoption of our policies, which were very recently implemented, a free-for-all. So the town management is already overseeing a significant number of these hiring practices without the Civil Service Commission's purview, and it seems like a very arbitrary decision to have anybody over 19 hours per week subjected to much more creative set of rules, I'll put it that way. The Commission's created and enforced rules that make shared service agreements with other towns nearly impossible. We have an instance right now where there's been ongoing discussions for about a year and 3 months now related to the shared service between Winchester and Barkhamsted for economic development services. Now, this group's discussed this before. The Civil Service Commission has been pondering for a year and 3 months as to whether or not this is permissible under their civil service rules. And despite my many pleas over that year and 3 months that I've been attending their meetings, they have refused to take up the question of whether they would change rules to allow for any level of shared service, regardless of the position. The civil service rules are also generally founded in state statute, which makes them difficult to change, admittedly. And the civil service commissions established around the state are really meant to manage extremely large bureaucratic hiring processes that are too cumbersome for one person to manage on their own. Commissions are found in large cities like Waterbury and New Haven. I believe that Trumbull is the second smallest town to have a civil service commission with around 36,000 individuals living there. We are the smallest town by far with a civil service commission with under 11,000 residents. And we have the staff in my office between Terry and I to oversee these hiring practices and to implement more stringent rules that have been adopted by the personnel policies. It's because of these inefficiencies, it's because of costs, it's because of delays, it's because of the modern job market and a lot of changes that have been seen in that job market over the past decade, 2 decades, that lead me to recommend that the Civil Service Commission no longer be a part of the town's administration and that this ordinance be repealed. So it's my recommendation that the Board of Selectmen consider this over the course of several meetings, as you have to do for ordinances. I do have attached here a letter from our labor attorney that outlines what would need to be done in order to proceed with such a decision. And this is all, like I said, outlined in this memo that's provided to us by our labor attorney. The bottom line is that I know that there have been a lot of questions around what would need to happen. We have a merit-based hiring system here in the town of Winchester that is enacted by our charter. If we wanted to go do away with the merit-based hiring system, which I fully support the merit-based hiring system. That's the system that says we are going to hire regardless of race, color, sex, gender, anything else. We are going to hire on the basis of who is qualified for the position. Of course, that is paramount to our mission. That's paramount to what we do as a government organization. And the Civil Service Commission is instituted by Ordinance Number 12 in order to oversee the merit system. So this is not a question of whether we will continue to have the merit system in town or not. It's a question of what is the agency or department that is going to oversee that system. Right now we have the Civil Service Commission. For the reasons I outlined, I believe that the correct answer to the question of who should oversee it should be the town manager's office and the town of Winchester. So this is my recommendation to you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, whether it's at this meeting or a subsequent meeting.
Questions? Concerns? Comments?
I have a few. So you have no human resource department here. So when you have a new hire, who does the processing, like the insurance, the tax forms?
Terry already does that.
Terry.
Yep.
So in your memo, you talked about Town Ethics Commission.
Yep.
Who did you want to be on that commission?
So we have an ethics commission in town, right? It's supposed to be 5 individuals balanced between the various parties. Right now, we have 2 individuals who are serving in that capacity. We have 3 vacancies that I know we are working to fill. And we have 3 individuals who are on the Civil Service Commission who have a clear understanding of, I think, the process for hiring. So it's my recommendation, and I hope that I've already approached members of the commission about this, and I hope that they will approach you with an application, that those 3 individuals would be a great fit to be on the Ethics Commission. And I didn't talk about this out loud yet for our public. What I'm proposing, because we have an ethics commission, because we already have an agency that is supposed to be overseeing the operations of the town, I see the civil service and the ethics commission as being redundant. We have an ethics commission that can be called on an ad hoc basis based on a recommendation from you, a request from you to that board, a request from my office to that commission, or even a request from the public. So if there's a level of wrongdoing that's occurring, it's already in our charter, and it's already in our ordinances that this ethics commission is meant to be the agency that investigates and reports back to you as to whether action needs to be taken. So rather than having a civil service commission that deals with oversight just on personnel, why not have the ethics commission review all of these various ethical activities that are occurring in town? If a complaint comes out of the hiring process, it would go to that body, they would investigate, and if I'm, being the town manager and being the hiring authority in most cases, they would ask me a series of questions and have me present information, and then they would report back to you as to whether some wrongdoing occurred, so that the process is fair, transparent, but also trying to keep the burden off of the everyday activity. Civil service is involved in almost every single step of a hiring process, whereas the Ethics Commission would only need to come in, and only comes in cases where a valid complaint is made.
I guess the other thing was, you said that currently we're charged $10,850 for the civil service examiner. So how would you get jobs posted? If you went through Indeed, wouldn't that be even more money?
So our
Post
job
some of these
postings are actually paid right now through our legal notice. We have a legal notice line that exists over in our legal department in the budget. So our notices that go out on the website where we pay for all of our web postings, that's not coming out of the civil service department right now. It's actually coming out of legal. So by eliminating the 10,000 and change allocation in the budget, that's money that we would totally save. There's no new personnel that we need to hire in order to take on the hiring practices. There's no new postings that need to be created that aren't already paid for by our legal service department.
So you would take on the responsibility of all hire on top of all the other responsibilities that you have?
The bottom line is that we're already doing all of those processes, and Terry is responsible for posting the jobs. This is actually going to be a alleviation of my burdens, because now instead of having to write the job description, send it to civil service, follow up with them for 2 months in a row, make the changes and so forth, I'm going to be able to look at my policies and say, all right, how do I write a job description that fits these policies? If the Board of Selectmen wants to see it, that's your prerogative, of course. But then let's get it posted. Let's move through the process, and let's take candidates in, juxtapose that to the new policies and procedures that we have put into place that I can manage on my own with oversight from the Ethics Commission, and make sure that we're hiring in a timely manner. So this is actually removing steps from my process rather than adding anything to my plate. I believe there is no downside from my perspective to making this change, especially on my workload.
Thank you.
Josh, coming from a background in professional hiring and recruiting, one of the the major comments that I see you making here is the ability to move things along quicker. I used to find that if a company delayed even setting up interviews, making decisions, that candidate in that particular job market would be lost. We've already heard from our Director of Public Works about the difficulty in hiring people for his department, but in every case that I had ever seen, every company that delayed had multiple interviews and could not effectively deal with the candidate, lost good people. They ended up hiring second or third rate candidates, but the top candidates were generally passed over because they went on to other places. So that alone gives me really the kind of, I think, feeling that this is an important decision that we're making. And so we've got other questions, but I think we better put this on a motion to get it started and have some open discussion. So I'll move that the Board of Selectmen formally acknowledge their consideration of the removal of Chapter 12 of the town ordinance and further consideration in a second instance at the next regular meeting on July 17th.
I'll second that. Discussion?
Section 749, 479, conflicts of interest is what's identified in our charter for the Ethics Commission. And it doesn't talk about, it has nothing to say, talk about anything about hiring practices. It only talks about money. So I don't know how an Ethics Commission could support an HR issue. I think it'd have to be more a labor attorney or something along those lines. It's labor law, it's not Ethics Commission. Ethics Commission is, you know, dollars.
Well, there are more steps to that if you go farther into the ordinance for the Ethics Commission, because we looked at that.
So the Ethics Commission can take in any complaint, though, that's brought to it.
Right,
And our policies, and I agree, maybe you want to put it in the ordinances so that way it's out of, if you're giving the town manager's office more responsibility for hiring practices, maybe you want to take some of these policy decisions out of the town manager's hands. Because right now we have a policy, the HR policies that were just recently adopted, that explicitly say that any complaints related to the policies and procedures should be forwarded to the Ethics Commission. So from my perspective with those policies, I am beholden to the Ethics Commission if they ask me questions about the hiring process, and they have every right to make a report to you as to whether that's going to impact my employment. And that's how you keep me in check. That's the checks and balances of the governmental
But I
system.
don't know how that relates to labor law.
So,
That's my, you know, I mean, I get that, and I'm not against this, and I get that, but it specifically has specific state statutes for it. I didn't see in reading them, because I wanted to re-verify that, you know, it had to do with nepotism or something along that. We have reviewed this in the past. We couldn't come up with, to eliminate civil service. I was part of that, or led that committee, but we didn't have a handbook. We didn't have a backup plan. We didn't have, one of the solutions was to have a HR professional come in quarterly, and if there were questions, or be on contract to consult or something, some way they could monitor, you know, the HR activity that was going on in the town. Not 24/7, but, you know, review things quarterly. I don't know what that would entail, but that was a consideration of how to handle that change, was to have an HR professional that could say, no, that's not done the right way, it needs to be done this way, or, you know, I don't know.
and to your point, I think that you actually make a valid point, and I should have said this more straightforwardly before. There are really two types of complaints, right? You can have a complaint related to nepotism and favoritism, which is what civil service was designed to avoid,
Right.
and which is what the policies and procedures that we adopted back in December are designed to avoid.
Right.
Versus, and that's something the Ethics Commission could review, versus somebody has a complaint that says, I was passed over and I was the most qualified candidate. Now it is, right, it's more of a labor law issue. It's not really ethical. It's just a question of, was that a correct legal practice? In which case, if a complaint's made and it's about me, I would really need to forward that to you as the Board of Selectmen to say, I'll get you in touch with the labor attorney, but they're making the complaint about me. I can't respond, I can't, be the appeals process for my own decision. So, but that's already where we stand, because when it comes to those legal hiring practices, civil service has a level of oversight to it, but they aren't qualified to answer any legal questions. So if something
No, they
comes
aren't
up,
either.
the labor attorney's already coming in. So again, it's just the extra layer of bureaucracy
And the
that doesn't
union-
fit
and-
into the puzzle.
And the unions address that themselves.
Right.
So this is all non-union employees. That
Actually,
would-
it's union and non-union employees. Everybody goes through civil service.
Oh, no, I know, but with
Oh,
the
but the union would-
elimination
would-
of it, the union
Right.
takes care of their own
Exactly.
complaints, whatever. With the labor attorney, it would be the non-union members.
Right, that might make a complaint that would have to come to your
Mm-hmm.
attention.
Well, I think that the root, I don't think we should put the ethics commission in there.
Yeah.
I think the main root is if the town manager isn't running a hiring practice that people believe has been fair, or, whatever they decide, the complaint should come to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen should either refer it to the town attorney or the labor attorney.
Right.
Because we hire the town attorney, we hire you,
Yep.
right? So we may not be able to get into we don't get into any personnel issues, but if there's a complaint about what you did,
Like
then
there has been for the Board of Selectmen, and we went to a labor attorney.
and it comes to us and we send it out to the
Yeah.
attorneys if we need to. I don't think you need more additional layers.
I don't think
mean,
the ethics.
'cause I
Well,
don't think,
that's
I think you just need to have a good process. You have to have the handbook that you have to have a hiring process where you say you're gonna post something for 10 days and you do. You're gonna post it internally for as many days that you say you're supposed to do and you do it. You have a job description that's, best practice in today's world in terms of what happens, and you do it. And you have all that laid out. And if we have it all laid out in hiring practices and whatnot, and you have committees to hire, and not just by yourself, and then you do it. I mean, when I was the principal, and even before that, I was hiring coaches, I was hiring teachers. There was a whole process that we went through that was planned, sequential, and we knew what was supposed to happen. And if you do all those things, then it should, people may not like the fact that they didn't get hired and somebody else did. But if your process is good, then there shouldn't be a trip. And if your process isn't good and you fail to do something and you only post it for 5 days then that's when the complaints could come.
And we're members of CCM, and they have HR support.
They do.
So that could be the body you could ask for clarification or something like that, isn't it? So.
Pretty much so.
As you said at the beginning of this has been something we've talked about before I was even elected. The previous town manager had, not Bob, but Dale had even mentioned this before. So this has been on the books for discussion for a long time. I think all of us here have had some of this discussion already, but if there's more, let's move it on and move the question. Just move it on. Let's go.
My concern with civil service is twofold. The first is I want the best possible candidates. I want us to hire the best possible. And the time delay, as Josh has pointed out, has cost us the best candidates on occasion. The other example that I'll point to is the hiring of the chief of police. Chief Fitzgerald gave his notice in November.
Yep.
Civil service didn't approve his job posting until, I believe, the week before Chief Fitzgerald retired.
Yep.
So we went
Same month.
2 months with no police chief because of the delay. And once again, we hired the best candidate, but we could have lost out on the best candidate because of the delays. So that's my concern with that. Do we have any other discussion? No other discussion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Abstaining? 601. So this will next be brought up on July 17th for meeting number 2.
How much of this has been on the website already?
Only what was included in your packet tonight has been posted to the town's website.
How about your
And as
letter,
an agenda.
the July 3rd letter that you gave us, and you read points from that? I think that that's pretty important to, the significance of the points that you mentioned in this, I think should be out public.
Well, it should be
So-
out because it's an ordinance change.
Well, and certainly, right, now we've kicked off the process, it will go under legal notices and all
Right.
of the things that we're required to do. If you would like, maybe this is some good discussion for the board before we move along. When we were approving the full body of ordinances recently, the newly codified ordinances, we had a separate page on the Board of Selectmen's, or even the town manager's page on the website, if you'd like, a sub-page that described what that process was about, why it was happening, what the next steps were, and dates involved, et cetera. Would you like a page to be set up for this process?
I would.
Or do you?
I'd like to see it clearly out there for the next 3 meetings. So
Okay.
that when we vote on it, we've had as much public input and exposure on this.
And identify the next steps.
Yep.
And identify the next steps and all the dates so that everyone knows when they'll be held in the, here.
Yeah.
The other thing I want us to do is I think Josh needs to send a letter to the Civil Service Commission
Right.
saying that we took this step tonight. If what I know has happened, they will more than likely, I hope that, well, I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but there's the possibility that they could object. And if they object, they could come forward with their
Right.
they have in the past believed that they can hire their own attorneys. They believe that they can object to things. So we might as well put them in the, I don't know if you told them you were bringing it tonight. I don't know if they saw the agenda for tonight. They were ready to come back in, was it April, March?
February, March, yeah.
February, March, they were talking about it at their meeting, I believe, in the minutes, so, they knew it was possibly happening, because Josh had went to see them, and then there was a lull, and so now it's back in, so I think if we're going to do this, then it's only fair to, inform them that it's happening, and then we'll just
Right.
see
No,
how it plays out.
It's definitely fair to let them know, but what we want the entire town to know.
Yeah.
But this is not a new, this is 20 years that I know. The same conversation back and forth for 20 years.
Nope, we never voted on it. I'm sorry.
We never
You're
voted.
never wrong. We never voted on it.
It never went anywhere. It keeps being, the
Well, part-
managers say the same thing about time and hiring, and so.
Well, part of what earlier discussions on this was, it was complicated. This is simple. Eliminate the ordinance, it's over.
Well, that's what you think. And that's what Bill Ryan thinks. But other people have different thinkings. I remember the person that was a part of the writing team. I remember those conversations vividly, so it's out there. Tell the commission, and let's see where we go.
For the record, this says Bill Ryan's opinion was also run by Kevin Nelligan, who concurred.
I was
He
gonna
didn't
add-
write a separate opinion at the town's cost, but I could have him do that if it comes to that at some point.
Kevin,
Well, let's
Kevin
just-
gave us that information years ago. We just didn't have a handbook. We didn't have processes in place either before. Well,
Moving on to item 11, executive session, taking the town manager Kelly with us to discuss possible sale of town-owned land and a discussion on strategic and negotiations of contracts. Can I have a motion to go to executive?
So
So-
moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor? It is 9:26
Every
PM.
time writes down.
Blue room?
You okay? I think John Ward, his transportation.
That's vacant. What's yours?
I said, beware the short agenda,
It gets you every time.
every time.
You're not going in?
They don't invite me, John.
You don't, by any chance, know Jay Case's phone? Because I'm dialing 379-1164, and he never seems to answer. So I'm wondering if I got the right number. Oh, 309-4077. Okay.
A piece of paper.
No, 309-4077. Let me just jot it down here. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Here. And I've been trying to get a hold of him because Lamont made that statement March 23rd. If you never got your Vietnam pin for your service, you can get it. But I don't know who to contact to get it. I thought I started with Jay.
He'll figure it out for you.
Yeah, I'd be legal if I wasn't riding with Linda. I never thought they were going to executive session.
Oh, no, they'll be in there for a while tonight.
Oh, my God. I gotta get up, get ready for a parade tomorrow morning. Riverton parade. I mean, the Barkhampton parade.
Do you need a ride home?
Yeah.
I can give you a ride. They'll be in there for a while.
Oh, you don't mind?
No, not at all. Give me something to do.
Come on, Cal.
Yeah, just tell Linda.
No, I'll tell her when she comes.
took John home.
You took him home, thank you, Glenn. He needed a ride. I forgot about the, executive session. Oh, thank you, that was.
Yeah, no
Was he
problem.
falling asleep?
He
Poor guy.
he was glad to.
John, oh, thank you.
Glad to get home.
I sent that in Friday.
I took John Warrior down.
It was
He asked, he called, asked for a
not
ride.
an easy task. Let me just say that. Give you those details.
I wish I could figure out where I saw that strategy. I know. Could be glass. Maybe it's glass barrier or something.
It's 10:13 PM. We're back from executive session. Item A, consider and possibly act on referring town-owned parcels to Planning and Zoning Commission for an 824 and to the town's real estate agent for listing on the market. You want us to list the property address? Sure. List the property address in your motion.
Mention it.
I will move to,
It's 47 Orchard.
yep. I move that we have, move 47 Orchard referral to the town's real estate agent for listing on the market.
And to planning and zoning.
And like,
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Linda. Discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Tabling item B. Item C, consider and possibly act on the approval of the fire chief's employment agreement.
Make a motion to approve the fire chief's contract as presented by the town manager tonight.
I'll second.
Thank you, Candy. Thank you, Jack. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? We have no citizens' comments. Board of Selectmen's comments and reports. Candy?
Yes, I would like, at our next meeting, hopefully at the next meeting, is to talk about economic development in our Route 800 corridor. So I would like to have, whether it's having EDC, well, if EDC would like to participate, but definitely the Director of Economic Development and the town planner to come here and talk to us about the Route 800 corridor, the updates of any businesses or what businesses are actually in that corridor, what businesses are for sale in that corridor, for instance, like the old Dome, is something happening there? Is there opportunities? There's some land for sale along the 800 corridor. I'd also like to know if there's been any discussion with the city of Torrington, with the town planner in Torrington, about anything about developing the Route 800 corridor. And then, of course, we also have North Main Street, which is also old Route 800 corridor, in our industrial parks up that way. Because I think that if we're, the idea of manufacturing and businesses on that corridor, I think it's important for us to hear about, and I'm not sure, what work has been done over there on that. I know we've had, people were helping people get established on Main Street, but I'd like to have them come and talk about the Route 800 corridor and what possibilities there are.
Let's extend that corridor going up to the overpass, because there's some buildings that are just on Raleigh Street, where I'm talking about.
I'm talking from the town line between us and Torrington, all the way up through our industrial parks.
Oh, the whole
Route
the whole
800
Route 8
corridor.
corridor. Okay,
Yes.
not just the old Route 8, the Winston-Torrington Road.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Because there's,
Because I thought
There's-
you said Route 800.
yeah, old Route 800. People call it different names now. It used to be Route 8, no, it's not.
Torrington Road.
Because they've had,
Frankfurt Street.
Yeah.
by the Dome, there's been
Yeah, but
Winstead Road.
I just wanted to be considered right up through the property that comes right up to the overpass, the old overpass.
Yeah, well, I want to go from there all the way,
Got it. It's a lot of property.
like what's happening what are the businesses like up there? Where's the possibility for expansion? Is there possibility for expansion?
There's some land for sale that's been developed. There's land for sale up there.
On North Route 8?
No. There is, but it's from Eversource, and you wouldn't want to be on that side anyway, but no.
Other comments?
Yes, I want to mention that the Friends of Main Street Summer Concerts with Northwest Community College are starting this Thursday, and we have Bad River Music starting at 6 o'clock this Thursday, if it doesn't rain. Doesn't look good, but we'll see.
I could repeat what I said about Soldiers Monument tomorrow,
It's all you.
July 4th, 2 to 4, Soldiers Monument, Crown Street open, with a public reading, community reading of the Declaration of Independence, starting at 3.
You have something, or?
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
when are we gonna schedule discussion of the Gilbert School report?
Next meeting?
Happy to.
Good, okay.
That would be just fine. If the next meeting works for everybody here.
Yeah, I will not be at the first August meeting, so I'm out of town,
All right, so July 17th.
July 17th.
July 17th.
I had the privilege this past weekend of recognizing World War II veteran Theodore Armeralda on his 100th birthday, which was actually back in May, but his celebration was this week. We declared him community treasure and a Winston hero for all time. And the other thing I have to let everyone know is the Winston Area Ambulance Association and the Northwestern Connecticut Community College Student Nurses Association are collecting items for the homeless in our community. They'll be accepting them outside the main entrance at the ambulance building on the Route 44 side on Main Street.
When?
Whatever.
Okay.
There's a bin out there.
Oh, okay.
You just reminded me, next meeting too, the transit district. $69,000 at the transit district, the bill that they want to send us, it was gonna be 6,000, now it's 69,000, we've asked for some information, we don't have it yet. They upped it, oh yeah, they did through the budget, you didn't see that? During the budget, $69,000 from something that was 6,000, we have no reason, no answers as to why they went up, we don't have the answers of the contracts and personnel costs, the budget, nothing.
This was since we put it in the budget?
It's in the budget.
We
At
asked,
that figure, right.
we
Yeah,
asked,
the higher.
We asked during the budget process for
we
it, yeah.
asked
Well,
all
I thought,
those
I thought,
questions.
I heard you say they just upped it again.
No.
We asked all those questions, but we don't have any answers.
Yeah.
And
We have
I-
some answers, but not the full extent of what we had requested.
And I think it's not a request for answers this time. It's kind of voluntold them to answer
Yeah.
the questions.
We give them $6,000, that's all.
Anyone else?
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. Hey, Jonathan, all in favor? Unanimous. Safe 4th of July, everyone. 10 fingers and toes next week.
Walk over. Oh,
Put something on the main page on the website. Okay. It's kind of depressing. Yeah, we can get that.
I'll fix that. If you have a specific
Yeah,
message
I'll
you'd
put
like to.
something together.
Okay.
Did you see